to Cozy Rosy Crochet, and today I am bringing you day 8 of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. Today you're going to be learning how to make the beautiful bead stitch, but I'm calling it the brilliant bead square because it works up so quickly and creates the most amazing texture. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and of course the notification bell so that you never miss out on another of the squares or any of my other crochet tutorials again. Let's find out the materials that we need to make our own brilliant beads square. So the materials that you're going to need to crochet your very own brilliant beads square is going to be some Aran weight yarn. Now I'm using shade 245 and this is a size 4 yarn, so it's an Aran weight yarn, and I'm using of course my favourite PaintBox Yarn Simply Aran. This is 100% acrylic, it works really well, it washes really well, and you get really good stitch definition with this yarn. I'm going to be using my 5mm hook, which is the recommended hook size for this weight yarn, and you're going to need of course a darning needle and a pair of scissors just to weave in those ends. So gather all your materials and let's get started. So to make an 8" by 8" square, we're going to start by making our slip knot. And then we're going to pop that onto our hook, ready to make our chain. So for our 8 by 8" square, we're going to start by making a chain of 25. So once we have our chain of 25, we're going to start on row 1 by working 1 single crochet into the second chain from hook. We're going to work our hook underneath that second chain. We're going to yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over and pull through 2, and that's working 1 US single crochet. So continue to work all the way down your chain, working 1 single crochet into each chain across, and I'll meet you at the end. So at the end of row 1, you should have a stitch count of 24 single crochets. And we're going to go straight into row 2, and this is where we're going to start our bead stitch. We're going to first of all work a turning chain of 3. So that's 1, 2 and 3. And then we're ready to work back along the top of our first row. So this chain 3 does count as a double crochet, so a US double crochet, which means we're not going to work into the stitch that the chain 3 comes out of. Instead, we're going to work into that second stitch along. We're going to start by yarning over and working 1 double crochet into that first stitch. And then to create our bead stitch, we're going to work around the post or the stem of the last stitch that we worked. So to do the bead stitch, we start by yarning over and then insert our hook from right to left. We yarn over, bring another loop up, and we're going to repeat that for a total of 4 times. So that was number 1. So we yarn over again, reinsert our hook around that post, yarn over, bring another loop up. We're then going to yarn over again, reinsert our hook, yarn over, bring another loop up, and then for the final time we yarn over the hook, insert, yarn over, bring another loop up. Now you see that I've not kept this yarn very tight against my hook, because what we're going to do now is yarn over and pull through all of these loops, but leave that first loop on our hook. So if you need to, you can separate that out from what you're doing. Just kind of use your hand or your finger to keep it out of the way, because we're going to yarn over and pull through all these loops on our hook. If you need to do it step by step, you can, but we want to leave that one I'm holding on to on our hook. So once we've pulled through, we should still have 2 loops remaining on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through those 2 remaining hook loops. And that's how we create this beautiful stitch. Now because we've worked this stitch around that post, we then skip that stitch that would sit underneath our bead stitch. So we're then going to work into the next stitch along. So effectively we're skipping this stitch. So we're going to yarn over and work another double crochet. So we've skipped that stitch and we're working our double crochet into this stitch here. And then we're ready to bead stitch again. So let's do that one together. So we yarn over the hook, and we're inserting our hook from the front to the back, yarning over and bring a loop up. You'll notice that I'm bringing my hook up a little bit to give me a bit of slack on my yarn. And we're going to do this again for a total of 4 times. So that was number 1. So we yarn over, reinsert, yarn over, bring our loop up. For number 2, yarn over, reinsert, yarn over, bring our loop up. For number 3, yarn over, reinsert, bring up our loop for number 4. And then remember that we're only going to pull through these loops, leaving that last one on. So just bring your hook through. If you need to kind of pull up and come back through again, if they're catching a little bit, that's perfectly fine. As you get used to it, it does become easier, and you can pull through all of them at the same time. We've got that last loop left. We're going to yarn over and pull through those 2 remaining loops, and that's another one done. So we skip this next stitch here, and we're working into this stitch to work our next double crochet. And then once again, we're going to continue working the bead stitch around our post. So we yarn over the hook, then insert, and we do that 4 times. And remember, we're going to leave that one loop unworked so that we can pull through that at the end. And we yarn over and just pull through those last 2 stitches. Skip the next stitch, yarn over and work our double crochet into that next stitch, ready to work our next bead. So if I hold it straight, you can see that it's creating a very small space above that skip stitch, and that's precisely what we want it to look like. So let's work another one of these beads together. Remember, we're going to leave that last loop on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So we continue to repeat the skip stitch, double crochet, and beading around that double crochet all the way down to until you have 2 stitches left. At the end, we're going to skip that last stitch and just work 1 double crochet into that last stitch. So I'll meet you to work those last 2 stitches at the end of row 2. So once we just have these last 2 stitches remaining, we've worked our final bead stitch. We're just going to skip that last stitch and then work 1 double crochet into that last stitch. So that completes row 2, and you can see that you should have a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bead stitches, and then 1 final double crochet at the end. Going into row 3, we're going to start by doing a turning chain of 1. Now this does not count as a stitch. Instead, what we're going to do is to work into that stitch underneath that chain 1, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into that first stitch, and then we're going to place 1 single crochet into the top of each bead stitch and into the top of each double crochet from the previous row. So I've come up closer, you can see, hopefully yours looks very similar to mine. So this is the next place that we're going to work under, and again we're just going to make sure that we just grab those 2 loops from our stitch and work our single crochet. Here's the top of our treble, so we're going to work another single crochet there. We don't work into this space, we're going to keep working into our stitches, working 1 single crochet into the top of each bead stitch and into the top of each treble crochet from the previous row. So continue to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 3. So it's important to note that because our chain 3 did count as a stitch, we do need to work 1 single crochet into the top of that chain 3, because that's going to complete our stitch count and bring it back to a total stitch count of 24 at the end of row 3. For the remaining of the pattern, we just repeat rows 2 and 3 6 more times. That's going to give us a total row count of 15 rows. So this is row number 1, our first row of single crochets, and this is our first row of beads, followed by another row of single crochets, and that takes us up to row 3. And we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 for a total of 6 more times. So let's work the start of the repeat of row 2 again. So we start with that chain of 3 that does count as a stitch, and then we don't work into this stitch underneath that chain 3. We're going to work our double crochet into that stitch next to it, and then we're ready to start our bead stitching around the double crochet we've just worked. So we yarn over the hook, insert, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, insert, bring a loop up 4 times. That's 3 and 4. And then remember, we want to leave this loop here on our hook, so we yarn over, pull through all the other loops, leaving just 1 loop on. So we've got 2 remaining loops ready to work the remainder of our stitch by yarning over and pulling through. We then skip that next stitch and work our next double crochet, so I've yarned over into the next stitch along. So we should always have that skip stitch in between, and then we just continue to work our beads all the way along. Oop. If, like me, you drop one, just make sure you pick up that top loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to repeat that the whole way along, working our bead stitches. At the end of the repeat of row 2, we should have 2 stitches remaining, and we just work 1 double crochet at the end of that row. So continue to work those repeats until you have a total of 15 rows. Don't forget that you can view the written pattern over on the website. I will link it here for you, and it's linked in the description box as well. And I'll meet you back ready to do our edging. Single crochets on row number 15. And remembering to work into that top of that chain 3. So I finished my final row of the Brilliant Beads square. I hope that you've enjoyed this square so far, and we're on to completing our edging. Now this edging is optional, you don't have to do it because you've got your starting chain and these edges are nice and firm, but if you're a bit of a perfectionist like I am, I'm going to add a little edging on all the way around, just in single crochet, the same way we've done with our other squares. So we're going to start with our chain 1, which allows us to work back down the side of all of these rows, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the ends of these rows, and just continue to work all the way down. As always, we're making sure that our edging doesn't impact on the shape of our square. So where we're working down these big ones, the bigger rows, if you know what I mean, we need to make sure that we're working into the space between the bead and the end of the row and into the end of the row too. Just placing 1 single crochet into each. Keep going, and I'll meet you for our first corner at the bottom here. So I've reached my final stitch, which is also the first stitch of working on the other side of our chain. Just working our corner, which is a single crochet, a chain 1 and another single crochet, and that allows us to turn to work along the other side of our chain. I'm going to work over my end for a few of these chains, and we're working 1 single crochet into the other side of the chain all the way along. So work all the way along, and I will meet you for our next corner. So in the last stitch, or on the other side of our chain, I'm working another corner. So 1 single crochet, chain 1 and another single crochet. We're working back along the other edge, doing the same as we did on the other side. So working 1 single crochet into the end of the rows, making sure we get all of those little holes to work into. Keep working. I'll meet you at the top, ready to work back along the end of row 15. I'm just going to work my corner into the first stitch of row 15. So working 1 single crochet, a chain 1 and another single crochet into that same stitch, and that just gives us a nice corner. We're going to work 1 single crochet into the top of the final row, which was row 15, and then we're ready to work our last corner and join so we can fasten off. I'm just working that final single crochet and the corner with a chain 1 and another single crochet into that last stitch. I'm going to slip stitch by inserting my hook, pulling through and pulling through the loop on my hook so that we can fasten off. Make a little chain one to create a knot. I'm going to find my scissors. So we are ready to leave a nice tail to weave in. Use my hook to bring up. And there we have our completed brilliant beads square. I hope you really enjoyed making this square with me today as part of the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. I'll see you tomorrow for another granny square pattern, and I think you're gonna love it. In fact, I know you will. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, doing all of those wonderful things that we're supposed to do, and I will see you again tomorrow for another crochet tutorial.